A second pair of hands appeared on the steering wheel, gripping tighter than mine. I didn't scream. The sound stuck somewhere behind my teeth, trapped by the low hum of the engine and the rhythmic sweep of the wipers. Rain slid down the windshield in long, wavering lines, catching the headlights and stretching the world into a narrow tunnel of wet asphalt and darkness. My knuckles were already white from holding the wheel too hard, skin slick with sweat despite the cold seeping in through the doors. The hands were pale. Not glowing, not monstrous, just hands. Clean nails. A faint tremor in the fingers, like they were exerting more strength than they meant to. They wrapped around the leather wheel from below, overlapping mine, thumbs digging into the same worn grooves I'd memorized over the years. The leather creaked softly under the added pressure. I told myself it was a cramp, a trick of reflection, fatigue after too many hours on the road. The dashboard clock glared 2:17 a.m. in dull green digits, the colon blinking steadily, unconcerned. I loosened my grip by a fraction. The other hands did not. The car stayed perfectly centered in the lane, humming along at 60. No sudden swerves, no jerks, just a subtle insistence, as if the wheel had decided on its own how it wanted to be held. My breath fogged the windshield edges. I wiped my mouth with the back of my wrist and tasted copper, realizing I'd bitten my lip. The radio murmured low static, a station I hadn't changed in miles, whispering fragments of talk and music that dissolved before forming words. I reached to turn it off. My left hand, lifted. The other hands tightened. The wheel resisted me with a firm, deliberate pressure, like another driver correcting a mistake. The sensation crawled up my arms, a deep vibration in the bones. I could feel the heat of skin through my sleeves, could feel the pulse in those Jujia wrists, steady and calm, nothing like my own hammering heart. "Hey!" I said, because silence felt worse. My voice sounded small in the car. "Hey, that's enough." The hands didn't respond. They didn't squeeze harder either. They simply stayed. I forced myself to look down fully. The dome light was off, but the dashboard glow was enough. The hands were attached to arms that faded into shadow somewhere near my ribcage, angles wrong, as if they emerged from beneath the steering column instead of from a seat. No sleeves, no jewelry, just skin, faintly bluish in the instrument light. I pressed my foot against the brake. The pressure under my hands shifted immediately, easing the wheel through the deceleration with smooth professionalism. The brake pedal sank farther than I expected, guided, as though another foot pressed it with mine. The car slowed without protest, without drama. A laugh escaped me, sharp and brittle. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, fine. You want to drive?" The road unspooled ahead, empty in both directions. Pines crowded close on either side, their trunks flashing by in dark vertical streaks. I'd taken this highway dozens of times, a shortcut through the mountains to shave an hour off the trip. There were no exits for miles, no houses, no lights. The speed dropped to 40, then 30. The hands adjusted, one thumb brushing my knuckle as the wheels straightened. The touch was unremarkable, and that was what terrified me. There was no cold shock, no unnatural sensation, just another human presence sharing space too closely. "I need you to let go," I said. My throat felt raw. "You're not. You can't be here." The wipers squealed briefly as they caught on something, then resumed their steady rhythm. The smell of wet rubber and old upholstery filled my nose. Somewhere behind me, in the back seat, something shifted, a soft sound, like fabric settling. I did not turn around. The car rolled to a stop in the middle of the road. The engine idled. Rain pattered against the roof, 1,000 tiny fingers drumming. The hands stayed on the wheel. Seconds passed, maybe minutes. My legs ached from tension. I realized I'd stopped breathing properly and forced air into my lungs, slow and controlled. The other hands matched the rhythm, thumbs lifting and falling almost imperceptibly, as if counting with me. "I'm not taking you anywhere," I said more firmly. "I don't know who you are." At that, the hands loosened. Relief washed through me so fast it made me dizzy. I pulled my own hands back, cradling them against my chest. The wheel remained steady, untouched. For a heartbeat, the car felt empty again. Then the engine revved. The wheel spun a quarter turn on its own, snapping my attention forward as the car eased back up to speed. My hands hovered uselessly in the air, afraid to touch anything. "No," I said. "Stop." The headlights flared brighter. The radio cut out entirely, replaced by a low, almost subsonic hum that made my teeth buzz. The car accelerated with quiet determination, the speedometer needle climbing past 60, 70. The hands returned, sliding back into place as if they'd never left. This time, they wrapped around from above, pinning my fingers between palm and leather. The pressure was firm but careful, like someone guiding a child's grip. I smelled breath, warm, faintly sweet, close to my ear. Not a voice, just the sound of someone else breathing in time with the engine. A steady inhale-exhale that fogged the side window beside my head. The glass clouded, then cleared, then clouded again, a ghostly oval appearing and vanishing. My stomach dropped. "There's no seat there," I whispered. "There's nothing there." The breathing continued. The road curved gently, the car leaning into it with practiced ease. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, startling me so badly I flinched. The screen lit up with no signal bars, just the time changing to 2:18. A notification preview flickered and vanished before I could read it. The hands shifted my grip, adjusting my thumbs. Teaching. A memory surfaced unbidden. My father's hands over mine, years ago, in an empty parking lot. His voice calm, patient. "Let the wheel move. Feel the road." "I already know how to drive," I said, tears blurring my vision. "I don't need help." The breathing faltered just slightly. The car slowed again, coasting. The hum faded. The radio crackled back to life with a fragment of a song I recognized but couldn't place. The singer's voice warped and distant. The hands eased their grip. I didn't pull away this time. I let them stay because some instinct told me that resistance had never been the point. The point was attention, awareness, the slow, creeping realization that I was not alone in control of my own movement. The road sign ahead flashed by too quickly to read, reflective letters smearing into white streaks. For a split second, in the reflection of the windshield, I saw another face layered over mine. Similar, familiar, eyes focused on the road with an intensity one recognized. The car turned off the highway without my input, onto a narrower road that dipped into deeper darkness. Trees arched overhead, branches knitting together until the headlights barely pierced the tunnel they formed. "Where are we going?" I asked. The hands tightened, not in warning, but in reassurance. The breathing by my ear warmed. Closer now. I felt a cheek brush my temple, solid and unmistakable. The sensation anchored the presence in a way nothing else had. The road ahead vanished into black, and for the first time since the hands appeared, the car's interior light flicked on. In the brief glow, I saw that the hands were mine. Same scar across the right knuckle, same bitten nails, same faint ink stain on the index finger I'd never managed to wash out. They were attached to arms that led to a body sitting where no seat existed, overlapping me, perfectly aligned, eyes forward, expression calm. The light went out, the wheel turned, and somewhere deep in the car, beneath the hum and the rain and the breathing, something settled into the driver's seat, content to finally be recognized. The next tunnel swallowed all sound, including the engine. I noticed it because of what was missing, not the echo I expected, not the low roar of tires against concrete, not even the familiar whine of the engine pulling uphill. One moment the car was alive beneath me, vibrating through the steering wheel and pedals, and the next it felt like I'd driven into a vacuum. The world folded inward, padded and thick, as if someone had pressed their hands over my ears from the inside. The tunnel mouth yawned wide and unadorned, raw concrete stained by decades of exhaust and rain. My headlights slid across its curved walls, pale and uncertain, illuminating streaks where water had carved paths down the stone. I lifted my foot from the accelerator instinctively. There should have been a change in pitch. There wasn't. I tapped the brake. Nothing. The pedal moved. The car slowed. But there was no accompanying sound. No hiss, no grind. No shift in momentum I could hear. Only the sensation of motion changing, like watching something heavy slow down in a dream. My breathing sounded too loud in my own head. A wet, internal rush that seemed disconnected from my chest. I rolled my window down an inch. Silence stayed put. Not the kind of quiet you get late at night, when the absence of noise sharpens your awareness. This was different, dense, complete. It didn't feel like sound had faded. It felt like sound had been removed, extracted cleanly and entirely. Even the faint ringing I usually carried in my ears after long drives was gone. The pressure made my temples ache. The tunnel lights flickered on one by one as I passed beneath them. Fluorescent tubes set into the ceiling at uneven intervals. Each pool of light arrived without a hum, without a buzz, without any warning at all. Shadows slid across the hood of the car, stretching and collapsing in total quiet. I could see my hands on the wheel, see the small tremor in my fingers, but I couldn't hear the leather creak when I tightened my grip. I tried to clear my throat. The motion happened. The sound didn't. Panic rose slowly, like something cautious, testing the edges of my composure. I opened my mouth wider, forced a cough, felt the muscles in my chest contract sharply. Nothing answered. My heartbeat thudded in my body, a dull internal percussion I felt more than heard. Even that seemed muted, as though wrapped in layers of cloth. I pressed my palm flat against my chest, then against the door, then against the dashboard, as if touching the surfaces might remind the world how to behave. The tunnel curved gently to the right. The far end was out of sight, swallowed by darkness that the headlights couldn't quite reach. I tried the radio. The dial turned smoothly beneath my fingers. The display changed stations, numbers blinking obediently. No static, no voice, no click when I turned it off again. The absence became oppressive. My thoughts grew louder in response, stacking over one another in frantic loops. This isn't possible. This is pressure. Altitude. A trick of perception. I ran through explanations the way you do when you're afraid to accept the alternative. The car drifted slightly to the left. I corrected it. The steering wheel felt heavier than before, resistant, as though the road beneath the tires had softened. I watched the painted lines slide past, their edges blurred by age and neglect. There were marks on the tunnel wall now, scratches, shallow gouges that caught the light at odd angles. They looked old. Too old. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I felt it before I saw it, a faint vibration against plastic. The screen lit up, stark and bright in the dim interior. The notification banner slid down. I couldn't hear it. I unlocked the screen with shaking fingers. The message preview showed no sender name, just a single line of text. Don't make noise. I stared at it, a thin sheen of sweat breaking out along my spine. My breathing felt shallow, cautious, as if I were afraid the act itself might break some unspoken rule. I typed back with clumsy thumbs. I can't. The message didn't send. No error. No confirmation. It simply sat there, unsent, as though the concept of communication had stalled halfway through the process. The lights overhead began to space farther apart. The darkness between them stretched longer, thicker. In those gaps, the tunnel walls seemed to move, not shifting position, not exactly, but flexing in a way that made my eyes ache if I stared too long. I focused on the road instead, on the faint shimmer of moisture on the concrete. I passed a recessed alcove on the right, the kind maintenance crews might use. Something pale lay just beyond the reach of my headlights. A shape. I told myself it was a tarp, a bundle of insulation, anything inert. As I drew closer, it lifted its head. I didn't hear it move. I didn't hear myself gasp. But my body reacted anyway, jerking hard enough that the car swerved before I forced it back into line. The figure remained in the alcove, partially obscured, its outline wrong in subtle ways. Too still, too deliberate. It watched me pass without turning its head. My pulse spiked painfully. The internal thud of my heart felt like it might crack my ribs. I pressed harder on the accelerator, desperate to reach the end of the tunnel, to burst back into a world where cause and effect still made sense. The car responded, surging forward in absolute silence. The next pool of light revealed something I hadn't noticed before. The tunnel walls were lined with doors. Not evenly spaced, not symmetrical. Just metal rectangles set into the concrete at irregular intervals, each with a small handle and no markings. They blended into the shadows unless the light hit them just right. As I passed one, its handle turned. I felt the vibration through the air rather than heard it, a subtle displacement that made the hairs on my arms stand up. The door didn't open. The handle simply returned to its original position, as if testing whether it still could. Another door. Another handle. My chest tightened. I became acutely aware of my own movements, how my foot pressed the pedal, how my hands shifted on the wheel. Each motion felt amplified by the surrounding stillness, like I was moving too loudly in a place that demanded restraint. The lights ahead stopped flickering on. I drove into darkness so complete it erased depth. My headlights illuminated nothing but a flat wall of black, swallowing their beams without reflection. The road markings vanished. The sense of forward motion dissolved until I could no longer tell if I was still moving at all. I eased off the accelerator. The car did not slow. I pressed the brake harder. The pedal met my foot with familiar resistance. The car continued forward, gliding smoothly, unimpeded. The sensation of movement returned only through my body, a subtle pull that suggested progress without confirming it. Then I felt it, a vibration low and broad, not quite a sound but something adjacent to it. The silence thinned, stretched like fabric pulled too tight. Pressure built in my ears, sudden and sharp. I opened my mouth to scream. Before anything could escape, the vibration resolved into understanding. The tunnel wasn't silent. It was listening. Every breath I took, every frantic movement, every internal echo of fear. It was all being held, stored, absorbed by the concrete and the dark and the waiting doors. Sound hadn't been taken from me. It had been collected. Ahead, far beyond the reach of the headlights, something exhaled. And the silence leaned closer, ready to give everything back at once.